This is a general reading for entertainment purposes only. Watching my content does not constitute an advisory relationship such as therapy or legal counsel. I am not a certified medical or therapeutic professional, and my readings do not constitute professional advice. My readings are for confirmation of what you already intuitively know for yourself, not to get answers from me. General readings like this are like forecasting the weather for the entire planet. I can say that it is summer in the northern hemisphere, but summer looks very different from region to region. So please use your best judgment, take what resonates and leave the rest. And now let's get back to the video. Thank you. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bee and I'm the Moon Lodge Mystic. I'm here to talk about this upcoming new moon that is happening on the 23rd. That's a Friday. And there's a lot to be said about this new moon because it's coinciding with the winter solstice, which as of the time that I'm filming was yesterday. This is the darkest period of the year, and we have the new moon, which is a dark moon. This is when the moon mythologically is dying and is about to be reborn through this lunar cycle. And the new moon is happening in the nakshatra of Mula, which occurs in Sagittarius. And Mula is symbolized by like a tangled knot of roots. It's really about getting down to the deep root of the matter, but it's also associated with destruction and especially the goddess Niriti. I hope that I pronounced that right. She is a destruction goddess, and she often also gets associated with like Kali in her more destructive aspect. So Niriti tends to be considered very ominous and inauspicious, whereas Kali is a protector, mother type of figure. And we look to Kali for the kind of constructive destruction. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but there's destruction like misery and loss and everything, and then there's destruction like clearing out what no longer serves, getting rid of all of our attachments and liberating us, which is also this higher aspect of Ketu, which is the planet that's associated with Mula. Ketu removes us from our attachments, which is why he's considered a malefic, because it doesn't feel good when you're very attached to something and it becomes removed from your life. It produces grief and suffering. But the ultimate goal of that is to liberate us from these attachments so that we realize our true self and what our true direction and motivation in life is. So leading up to this new moon, there are a few things going on. We have Venus and Mercury in Sagittarius. Mercury is going to be retrograding sometime next week. We have Saturn in Capricorn, Jupiter in Pisces. Mars is still retrograding in Taurus, and Mars is aspecting Sagittarius from his position in Taurus. He is also aspecting Scorpio, which the moon is currently traveling through Scorpio. And so we're going into this winter solstice darkening period, and the moon is currently traveling through Scorpio, where the moon is debilitated. And Scorpio often is, we talked last video because we had a lunar cycle in Scorpio, how Scorpio really lets us go deep into things, and when we're going really deep into our emotions, we tend to uncover where we feel vulnerable, where we have fears and paranoia. And the moon especially is vulnerable to this because he's in this waning cycle approaching new moon status. So the moon, it represents how we feel safe and secure and connected and really held by family and loved ones and all that. And when the moon is growing dark and weakening in energy, the moon can feel very vulnerable. So it's a really good idea to check in with yourself during these times about how you're feeling and kind of ask yourself, what do you need to feel safe and secure right now? Because that might be getting challenged, especially because the moon is debilitated in Scorpio, where we feel all of these deep, sometimes overwhelming emotions. And on top of that, the moon is now approaching, as the moon approaches the end of Scorpio, we call that a Gandanta point, the 29th degree of a water sign transiting into a fire sign is Gandanta. And this is a really, it's associated with spiritual transformation, but it's not necessarily like all love and light and whatever. It's like shedding your skin. And if you think of a snake that is shedding its skin, it's not like gentle, like they have to writhe around and sometimes like rub up against rough surfaces to help get that skin off. So it can feel uncomfortable. And with the moon debilitated in Scorpio and approaching Gandanta, this is happening over the course of Thursday, the day that I'm filming. You may have found the last couple days that you were feeling like you may have been feeling the super expansiveness of Jupiter, and then suddenly you're scared. Like, oh gosh, I'm feeling so high and awesome, and when's the other shoe gonna drop? That kind of thing might be coming up. And you might just be noticing like deep emotions that you've been kept inside coming to the surface. I know I've been going through that personally. I, on one hand, I have been feeling the vitality of the sun in Sagittarius right now because I'm a Sagittarius rising. So the sun on my ascendant is really empowering. And so I've been feeling more courage to step up and make decisions for myself that increase my leadership in my world. And at the same time, now that the moon is going towards the end of Scorpio and getting into deep debilitation, it's like suddenly I'm really scared of what it means to expand my role in my life like that. And all these other grief stories have been coming up. I'm reminded of my father. It's the holidays, and I lost my father a few years ago. And so I'm having grief about that come up. I'm feeling extra vulnerable because I'm making big strides in my life and expanding my horizons and making bold moves. And others might be feeling very similarly to that. Might be going through similar things. It depends on where all this falls in your chart. So it depends on your birth time and where your ascendant falls. But I can tell you, as a Sagittarius ascendant, this cycle has been bringing up a lot of inner demons to be faced. And the Gandanta point is really going to turn that up a few notches. And coupled with the solstice, we're really being called to release things that no longer serve us. Mula, we're looking at the roots of all this mess and gunk in our mental body and our belief and spiritual system. And Mula is really good for you want to go deep down and figure out what is no longer serving you and pull that up by the roots and discard it. Kind of like when you're weeding a garden. When you're weeding in the garden, you have to get something out by the roots, or else it's just going to keep growing over and over again. So this is real total excisement of self-limiting beliefs, of patterns and relationships, memories, stories that we keep telling ourselves that really keep us small. where Sagittarius is really where we feel expansive freedom and inspiration and ambition to act on our ideas and our beliefs about what we really feel about the world. And so your life philosophy, this is kind of like falls under Sagittarius. And you might be finding, like you believe that it's really important to do something. You might feel a strong duty about something. For me personally, it's like I feel really called to show up in the world and really put forth my best foot, and make an honest effort about getting my services out there, and expanding my business. And in order to do that, I mean, there are certain self-limiting beliefs I have about my abilities that have to go in order for me to really be in alignment with what I feel is true in about my life, and about my self-worth. So making sure that, you know, beliefs and traumas and things like that, that everything's coming into alignment. And the solstice is really, really good for that as well. You might be called to do some type of inward reflection. This is a really great time to consider the new year that's coming up and what is it that you want to do away with in your life, and really honor the purpose that those things served in your life, and maybe hold a ritual. I'm going to be doing a burning ritual on the actual new moon. And I'm going to be really using that time to reflect on my internal landscape and what is working and what is keeping me held back, and putting that into the fire and letting it be released, and making a conscious choice to choose beliefs and actions that put me in alignment with my goals. So with that being said, just be gentle with yourself, because whenever there's a new moon, it's really common to feel very vulnerable. And with the experience of the solstice and Mula and the Gandanta point coming over from Scorpio into Sagittarius, you can feel especially vulnerable and probably scared about the really big opportunities and inspirational things that bring you passion and joy, what that brings into your life and how it expands you and takes you out of your comfort zone and really pushes you past your boundaries. That you might be, experiencing containment with those boundaries, but that containment is keeping you stagnant, So do things that support your needs. Use this time to slow down and rest. And just be in the stillness. It's a dark time, and it can take a while for the light to really feel like it's returned. That's why it's Imbolg. It's out in February when we are really celebrating the return of the light, because we can actually feel that the light has returned. There's still a period of time between the actual solstice and the next season where it's still very, very dark out. And yes, the light is increasing, but it's not necessarily like, it doesn't feel like, yes, the light has returned until a bit later. So it's slow moving time. It's time to just let yourself be still and to see what kind of insights and new inspirations and directions want to come into your life. Clearing out the old makes space for the new. And so this destructive aspect of Mula, even though it can be very, very challenging to experience, it's necessary for your growth. And, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is all about that expansive growth and really wants us to feel uplifted. And you can't be uplifted if you're weighed down by all this, these old stories and things and resentments. And, that's where we went through Scorpio, we went through our fears and came face to face with them and really had to experience them. And then Mula is like, okay, well, you know, what can we let go from that so that we can move into this expansive, ambitious kind of energy from Sagittarius, where we feel really inspired by our beliefs and our teachings that we come in contact with. This lunar cycle, it starts in Mula, but the full moon is going to be in Punarvasu in Gemini later, like January 6th. And Punarvasu really is literally like the return of the light. So it's really fascinating, again, that we have this coinciding with the solstice, because Punarvasu represents the universal mother. This is the source mother of reality. She represents, her name is Aditi, and she represents the fabric of space. This is really where all of reality springs forth. And this return of the light is really an auspicious time. And it's wonderful that we're going to be having a full moon here. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I did pull some oracle cards, and we can get into those now. So for this first card, this is a Moonology card, and it's to represent the overall energies of this new moon. Expect powerful change, new moon eclipse. Put that right there. Or I guess, whatever. And then we have Owl Spirit, Wisdom. We have Dragonfly Spirit, Change. And then we have 4 self-care cards. We have Connect with the Earth. We have Alone Time. We have Family. And then we have Journal. So I was not surprised when these cards came out when I was shuffling them. I was surprised, but I was like, yeah, that is exactly what this new moon is about. It's really calling in change. This is really being emphasized. Like, what can you let go? How can you surrender over to a transformative process that really wants to enter your life right now? In what ways are you being called to transform? And how will that bring wisdom into your life? And what teachings inspire you? What brings you what nourishes you? What kind of wisdoms have entered your life? This is really like the Jupiter teachings. And I thought it was really interesting that the owl spirit was represented here, because sometimes Niriti is associated with a Lakshmi, which is, kind of like the anti-Lakshmi. It's her sister. And how do I say this? I was reading from Vic Dicara's book, The 27 Stars. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and open up this passage and read it to you guys about Niriti. So there are some ancient, gosh, I can't remember the word right now. Either way, there's some ancient texts that depicts Niriti in 2 forms. There's like the horrific, ghoulish Niriti form, and then the other is like blonde, fair. She's very wealthy and clad in gold. So, and there's this passage about that. It's called "Misfortune, go away. We deflect your arrow. We know you well, Niriti. Oppressor, destroyer. a wild naked woman haunting our dreams, confusing and baffling us. I respect you, blonde Niriti, vast as all of space, full of auspiciousness, golden complexioned, reclining on gold, dressed in gold. I respect you. So sometimes this has been kind of compared to the duality of Lakshmi and Alakshmi. Alakshmi is kind of like the Niriti, the ghoulish version of Lakshmi. It's the misfortune and destruction that befalls us, and we have to. Alakshmi visits us first, and then Lakshmi comes after her. That's kind of like the thing with them. And Lakshmi, if you're familiar, she's, the Hindu goddess of wealth and prosperity. So it's kind of like we have to go through this destruction before the blessings can really come in. And the reason why this connects to the owl spirit is that owls are associated with Lakshmi, and I believe Alakshmi as well. So it's really fascinating that this owl spirit card would come through. As for the self-care tasks, we talked about how this is a dark period. This is a time to really go inwards and spend some time reflecting. Journaling is a great exercise to do right now. I journal every single day, so this isn't really anything new for me, but during times like this, I do take extra care to really focus on how I'm journaling. Sometimes when things are a little overwhelming, I notice like I don't want to focus as much on how I'm actually feeling. And I'll just use my journaling to plan out my day or talk about my plans for the week or something like that, which can be helpful for brainstorming and coming up with solutions and things. But really, sometimes you have to be mindful about how you're journaling. And these last few days, I've been really trying to put in the effort that when I'm journaling, I'm taking time to stop and notice how I feel in my body and what emotions are coming to the surface, and actually acknowledge those feelings in my journaling and say like, oh, I feel really sad right now, or I'm feeling really scared, and let the words come through that. And just see what wants to come out of that in a stream of consciousness type of way, where you're just writing and you just see where it goes. And if you notice yourself avoiding that, that's really something that's useful to kind of just notice and see, kind of get curious about that. Like, oh, why am I having a hard time just acknowledging my feelings? What am I scared of, or something like that. Connecting with the earth. I feel like this card comes out every time I do these lunar readings. You can never go wrong with grounding and getting earthy in your life. That really helps stabilize the moon energy in our lives. That earthy groundedness. The moon is exalted in Taurus because it brings this really grounding aspect to the emotions and lets us really feel into our bodies. So take some time, alone time, maybe go on a hike. You can go on a vision walk, where you set an intention for what type of insight you might have, a question or something that you just want to contemplate, and you set your intention that, like, when you go on this walk, that you're open to receiving new information or insights into this intention or question that you've put forth to spirit and the earth, and see just what comes up. Maybe something will jump out at you while you're on your walk that you see, or maybe just being in the serene environment of being around some trees or plants and other, natural habitat. Maybe just that grounding essence just lets you think things in a new way or gain a new perspective on what you're experiencing. And then, of course, family here. I'm going to take a sip of tea. So family, this is the holiday weekend. This is Christmas for a lot of people, and or Yule celebrations if you're pagan. And there when I look at this card, I just feel like there's so much warmth and nourishment that's coming through. And, you know, when we're going through big changes, we can feel so unsure about what direction we're moving in. And, you know, is it going to be okay? Am I going to be safe? Is everything going to come out all right? Am I crazy for doing this or something like that? And turn to your family. If you have, you know, this doesn't have to be blood family if you're not on great terms with them. Anyone that you consider close and supportive in your life, turn to them and just let them know what you're going through. Let them know what you're feeling and let them hold you through that. And that will really help mitigate these fears and unpleasant feelings that are coming up through this lunar transit. And with that, I'm ready to close out with an affirmation from our Louise Hay deck. And for today, I've got, I forgive all past experiences. I accept all that I have created for myself, my past and my present. I am willing to allow my future to happen. I think that's such a wonderful affirmation to end this reading on, and to really sum it all up is that, you know, we have to create space for the new blessings to come into our life, for the new inspirations, the new directions that we are being called to move in. Let things go and try and just do it with a voluntary type of surrender, release. You know, there, it's not, when we are interacting with like these Mula type of K2 energies, and in my case, Scorpio is my 12th house, so this is more about this release and letting go thing. When you're really hanging on to something and that thing is ready to leave your life, or it's holding you back or something, for whatever reason it needs to go, if you're hanging on to that and life just rips it out of your hands, that feels like, oh, this was taken away from me. Whereas you can adopt a conscious attitude where you're holding on to something, you see the signs that it's time to let go, and you just willingly open your hand. That's surrender. That's saying, okay, I'm not going to fight this. I'm going to let this go. I'm going to, you know, put my attention on looking forward, you know, and seeing what's trying to come into my life as I let this thing go. And then you can approach that new experience with an open hand and be ready to receive what life wants to offer you. And so I am willing to allow my future to happen. I accept all that I have created for myself, my past and my present. Just have an attitude of acceptance. And if you can do that, it's not always easy to do that, but if you can make an effort towards that, it gets easier and easier over time, and it will really help put you into flow, basically, and allow your life to kind of just, you know, you can kind of float down the river, right? Or you can be grabbing out for branches and being like, no, I want to try and go this way or that way. Just move with the current of your life. And, you know, the planets are all on their own currents. These are all rhythms that repeat throughout history, and we're just riding the current. And that is all I have to share with you guys. Thank you so much for coming to my channel and watching. I hope that this was helpful for you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Happy holidays. Take care during this winter solstice. Stay warm, stay nourished, and all the best blessings to you all. Happy New Year. I'll see you later. Bye.